Greetings and welcome to Chronicler's Corner again. This is part of a series looking just from a personal point of view at literature in period such as the Arthurian romances, which has always inspired me even before I joined the SCA, and looking at it in context of the chivalric virtues. This is a series not just for fighters, it's for everyone, regardless of how long you've been in the SCA or what your path is. It's just something to try and introduce some of this wonderful literature to those who might not have read it, and also, like everything else, it's something to do in lockdown. Okay, so today's value is that of humility. This one's been chosen by my Pelican Master and also the Squire to whom I am Sergeant at Arms. Now, in lockdown, we in the Dawn Company have been looking a lot at this value in how it relates to our fighting. We have been going back, guided by our members who've given talks, and also by members of the chivalry who have been good enough to come and talk to us, looking at how we can examine the points of our fighting without being angry at ourselves for mistakes, but simply correcting deficiencies and issues that arise, and doing so in a spirit of trust and faith in our own progress and humility that every day we begin with that, we learn something, we correct something, and we progress on. Now, everybody makes mistakes, especially if you're new, especially if you're unfamiliar. Even if you're good at things, sometimes you make mistakes. And you can't learn without making them. So today's story is about a young man who does exactly that. Makes mistakes. Now I ought to do this as a fairy tale because it really has that flavour. So once upon a time, there was a brave knight who rides to tournament and falls. Now, this happened in period. This is why today we fight with this. And in part what we do is, I believe, based on a tournament book written by a king called René, who didn't want his knights to use sharp weapons in tournaments, and thus not return. He wanted them to use wooden weapons for combat à plaisance, for pleasure, as we do, and thus be able to fight on the next day. We'll look at King René every day, and as we do. So this bold knight falls in tournament, and his lady is left pregnant with their first son. Now, because of what has happened, she hides him away, and the boy, Percival, or Parsifal, or if you want another version, Careless Mouse, it's all the same person, just different versions of the name, in tales by different writers. She hides him away in the woods, and the one thing she never lets him see is nights. She gives him instructions. For example, if you need wisdom, you should go unto an old man who knows things, and you should ask him to teach. She also tells him to fear God, and when the boy asks, well, what does God look like? She says, he is shining and bright. So on that day that eventually must come, because in stories when people hide other people away from their destiny, or they hide themselves, eventually something comes along, and it comes, and it brings them out. He sees knights on horseback, and their armour is bright and shining. We can probably see where this is going. Once he's finished flinging himself at their feet and worshipping them, and they have explained what they actually are, the game's up. His mother has to let him go. But in order that he not forget his origins, and always stay humble, and also there is a little bit of an idea in her mind that if she sends him out like this, perhaps he won't like the night after all and he'll come home. She dresses him in fool's clothing. Now, this isn't the motley you think of as medieval fool's gold. This is calf skin and bear skins and sackcloth. Everybody's first garb cannot look as bad as this. I'm in some of my first garb and a very nice tunic subsequently made for me by a friend. So off he goes in his fool's garb, and the first thing he does, for he's found out from the knight that it is honourable to fight and to win, and that if you do that, you're entitled to the armour of the person you defeated. So that happens. He defeats someone. He attempts to take his armour. Now, the first time that you try to unlace armour, wear loner armour, or indeed cope with armour in any way, shape or fashion, certainly this happened to me, you'll identify. Parsifal could not take anything off him. Not helmet, lace, or knee pieces. His fine white hands failed to loose anything. Yet he tried and tried again, this lad so little favoured with good sense. But it's not so much his good sense as his impatience and over-enthusiasm that's the problem here. But a squire comes to his aid. He rides to King Arthur's court in his borrowed armour, his one armour and his fool's clothing, and he's recognised for who he is, someone who is destined to be a knight. So, point number one. Despite what he's wearing, despite his appearance, despite his foolishness and his mistakes, there are people who can see through him and see to the person that he's going to become. Now for his education. Remember his mother told him that she should seek out someone who is old and wise, with a white beard. Now this chap is called Gurnemanz. And this is what he tells the Parsifal. This is how I shall begin. So allow me. First, you must never lose your sense of shame. For as one is past all shame, what is one fit for? One lives like a bird in moult, shedding good qualities like plumes. Practice humility. A man of standing fallen on evil days has to wrestle with his pride, and this is a bitter struggle. You should be ready to help him. Such men are in worse plight than those who beg bread at windows. You give moderation its due, and it is clear to me that you need this counsel. Be done with unformed ways. Don't ask too many questions. But if someone has a mind to sift you with words, you should not hold back a considered answer that keeps straight to the point. You can hear, see, taste and smell. That ought to lead you to reason. Temper daring with mercy, and show me that you have followed my advice in this. When you have won a man's submission in battle, accept it and let him live, unless he has done you mortal wrong. I'm sure I've heard some of that advice from my own master, probably quite often. Gurnemanz does is go through a list of chivalric virtues, but also ones that I would call perhaps general or maybe even civic virtues. I'm going to move in a moment to a different text from those high romance, and you'll see what I mean. So, he emphasises humility, courtesy, but also compassion for others and mercy. And above all, he stresses reason and moderation. Now, if you're not a fighter, you're probably thinking, well, what's all that got to do with me? This is another book that has been my absolute joy since I joined the SCA. It was recommended to me as a cookery book, but it's far more than that. It's a good wife's guide, the Ménage de Paris. It's a household book, and sandwiched between instructions for gardening, which I totally recommend, and a chapter entitled how to give good counsel to your husband. I need to tell mine to keep the camera steady. Thank you. Is how to deal with attacks on your humility. Now, this is a text for a merchant's wife to learn how to navigate her way through the snares and pitfalls of everyday life. When you see pride coming at you with his banner unfurled, gaping in all directions, and with him derision, disdain, contempt, presumption, disregard, audacity, conceit, scorn, and bravado, plus all of his other companions who have hearts worse than dogs, hastily muster to your assistance humility, devoutness, magnanimity, gentleness, pity, justice, modesty, and equity, and numerous others who with them will dash to your aid. Upon your defeat of pride and his army through humility, protect yourself thenceforward, so that if he returns to confront you and bring you again to his camp, humility and the others of her party will still be there to shield you when you need them. Now, I find that the most absolutely glorious image. The idea that this is, even in a secular context of advice to a merchant's wife, a military battle between two opposing sides, that just speaks to me very much. And I think that it certainly is, for me, a battle that's been going on since the start of lockdown. Here we were, practices every week, glorious tournaments, wonderful events, and then suddenly all that's taken away. And we have been fighting on ever since to continue to learn, to continue to develop, and in particular to make something in lockdown of this great society and principality we have, and to welcome those of you who have come to us new. So, this wasn't going to be a book recommendation, but I think it is. Parsifal, you can get the Penguin translation. We'll be posting up some book ideas. And the Good Wife's Guide, you can get from Amazon. You can get from Amazon. But that's my take on humility. Pride is something which I struggle with all the time. Good sense is something which I've had to gradually acquire, and I'm sure my Pelican Master wouldn't disagree. Enthusiasm is something which I have in absolute spades, but it has to be tempered with good sense. And then I'll leave you, and I'll continue next time with one of the things I mentioned right at the beginning here. The faith in your path, in your progress, in yourself, and in others. And I'll return to that in our next talk here, in the person of a young squire on a journey who falls asleep on the road. And you'll have to wait till next time to find out what happens. Thank you, folks.